Oh boy. Whew. I'm going to talk about the top 10 records that changed my life. There's a magazine called Metal Hammer, which is a metal music magazine, published out of the UK, and I enjoy it. I subscribe to it and read it and what have you. Anyway, much like their sister company Revolver, they just have fun little things, articles that they do every month or every other month, depending on the publication. Or I guess now Revolver's like quarterly. Anyway, they they have a segment where they interview an individual and they ask them questions that are about like the top 10 records that changed their life. Most of those questions, every issue, are the same. They're standard questions, and sometimes they fluctuate a little bit, and they ask someone something slightly different depending on the person that they are. I just thought it'd be fun to go just as an exercise, just to like do that. So, again, depending on the issue, the questions might fluctuate a little, but most of them are pretty standard. So I'm just gonna do that. I thought it was just fun to like talk about the top 10 records that changed my life. I will let you know a couple things up front before we get into it, and one is that I'm gonna do another video where I talk about the real top 10 records that changed my life, because this is like the magazine's asking questions, and I'm like, yeah, these haven't necessarily changed my life, but you'll get it once you get into the questions. But I'm gonna do it again, and none of those records are gonna be the same. The other thing is I'm going to let you know that some of these like albums I don't even have physical copies of. Some of them are like burnt CDs, because some of these questions reference things from my youth, and I got some CDs burned, and I never bought the actual physical copy of it ever, because I ripped it and I had the digital files, and I just never got around to buying the album. Which is weird for some of these. It's like, yeah, you should probably own that, but I just don't. So, which for some, yeah, there's a reason why, and for some other ones it just didn't happen. So I have some of the physical albums, and I'll show you those here. Otherwise, I'll just like insert pictures of the album art or something like that. But with that, let's get started. All right, number one on the list, the first album I ever bought. Whew. It was at a gas station. It was at the Esso in Outlook, where I moved for my grade 6 year, starting in grade 6. And that's when I bought my first CD. And it was like used from this Esso gas station. It was Weird Al Yankovic, Weird Al's Alapalooza. Why did I buy this album? You may be asking yourself. My babysitters had like some Weird Al stuff, some Weird Al albums. I don't remember that one, but they had some others, and I remembered like listening to them, and I was like, oh, that's like fun and whatever, and I thought I liked Weird Al, and then so I bought that album thinking I liked Weird Al. I had like $10 or something, I don't even know, and I bought it, and then I realized I don't like this album. I probably don't like Weird Al, like, or at least I didn't like that album. There wasn't really much on it that I would even now be like, oh yeah, that's great. It's good jam. It's a bop. Stuff slaps, man. But yeah, I remember there's a song called Harvey the Wonder Hamster that I used to play real loud when my stepdad Harvey was being a wiener. So anyway, that's the first album I ever bought. There's not much meat to that. It was just like I was in grade 6 and I was like, oh, I'm like 11 years old and Weird Al, man. So yeah, I don't have that one anymore. Not sure what happened to it, but I haven't needed it or decided to buy it again or download it. I didn't listen to it very much from my memory. So that's the first one. Second one, the album I wish I made is Dark Passenger. So, explaining the question a bit, or the prompt, I think what they're really getting at is, oh, what's like a sick album that you wish you did because it's so good? But this is a little different. So, I was in a band for a while called Upon Wings of Shadow. The dudes were based in North Battleford. I was in Saskatoon. I traveled out there for jamming and stuff like that. Really sick dudes, like great players, really awesome music that they created. And I started writing this concept album, and like just the music and the style of music and the quality of the music really pushed me past like certain limits. Then like at first I was like really intimidated, but I was like, man, yeah, this is good, this is good, this is good, and it really pushed me. We ended up doing like one demo that we recorded, and we played one show, and then it fell apart after that. Someone in the band just it didn't want to do it anymore, and I won't get into the specifics, but um, we had enough material. Like we didn't have the whole album written yet. I think we're gonna shoot for 10 tracks, and I had like these chapters, and I think we had 7 songs finished completely. Like I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Before things fell apart, we had 7 songs. Yeah, like I said, we only got to perform once, and we have a demo that we recorded, but it wasn't even mastered yet, so it sounds pretty rough. But that's the album that I wish I made because we were working on it, and it really pushed me, and it pushed me creatively, and also like with my vocal skills and just like songwriting and things like that. And it would have just been like awesome to have that album made because there's some amazing songs and good music there that's lost. But that's the album that I wish I made. It was one I was in the process of making and it didn't happen. Oh boy, you're in for a treat. The album that reminds me of school is now. It's got a lot of stuff on there. It's not my writing, by the way. But this is The Long Road by Nickelback that my girlfriend in high school burned for me and wrote a bunch of stuff on. I still have a CD binder full of some burnt CDs, and that's still in there. I didn't feel the need to go buy the album and buy a Nickelback album. However, it does remind me of school. So we started high school in grade 7 in Outlook, and I met a dude who I believe he failed grade 8 and ended up being in my grade 8 class, and then just he introduced me to metal. We started hanging out and just like this good dude, and it just my world just blew up from there. And I was just this metalhead all throughout high school up until maybe like grade 11ish. But we'll maybe get into that, especially in the next video of the real top 10 albums that changed my life. I'm going to get into that a bit. But anyway, I was just like only into metal and grunge, and that was pretty much it for years, and didn't really allow anything else into my world. And then in my grade, I'm going to say 12 year, I was on been on the basketball team grade 7 and 12. Anyway, there's a dude named Jeff who's a year younger than me, and then we got to be buddies, and then we'd like cruise around in his car, and he would play The Long Road by Nickelback, and I was like, oh man, no, I don't want to listen to that. But he was like, no man, there's like some good jams on here. This thing really slaps. And he showed me a couple songs. Like, you know what? That's a hard rock song. Like, it's a really that's got some riffs. Like, that's good. And then yeah, I got into the album, and that's how I kind of got into Nickelback, because I heard the singles before that on Silver Side Up. And they're not bad singles, but not what interested me at the time, and still don't interest me a lot now. But yeah, that he played that album a lot while we were driving around, and then I got into it, and then like got my girlfriend at the time to burn it for me, and it does remind me of school, not just because it was an album that was played a bunch, because like I listened to so much music even back then, way more back then than now actually. I have more music now, but I don't listen to it as often or the breadth of it. But it was also just like there's parts of me that relate to like this small town kind of life, I guess, right? Or rural small town and stuff, and definitely things that were going on at that time for me that I attached to certain songs. So it took me a long time to think of this one actually, because I was like, what album reminds me of school? And that would be the one. That's the one. So the next one is the album that I want played at my funeral is. That is 10,000 Days, Tool. So, Tool, which is something, again, I'm going to talk about in the next video more so. I came around to Tool pretty late, and it took a little while. And after all the Tool albums, like 10,000 Days is the one I listen to the most. It's to me the just I don't want to say accessible. It's beautiful. To me it's the most beautiful album. It's not my favorite songs are not on that album because some of my favorite songs are off Opiate and off Anima and whatever. But 10,000 Days as a whole piece of work is nearly perfect to me. I listen to it a lot when I make art. I listen to it actually at school a lot in the classroom for students. Most of it's generally safe. There's still some aggressive parts on there, and then there's some. It's just a beautiful album. Also, the themes and stuff that go in with things there, if you know it thematically at all, and sometimes and lyrically and what's happening there, there's some ties into mortality as well. And for me, if I'm thinking about the song, the album I want played at my funeral for some reason. Again, a lot of these are really hard to like really think about when you have so much music you've been exposed to. But Tool, 10,000 Days, I think that would be something that I would like to have played there. And yeah, I don't really know where to go from there. But it's a beautiful album. And I don't know what my funeral would be like anyway. I guess that's a whole other question. Maybe that'll prompt a video. But I think that would be the album. That'd be the soundtrack to my funeral. A kid comes up to me and asks me what metal is. I hand them a copy of this. That's the prompt. It was really difficult to decide. This is what I decided on. Again, another burnt one. Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power. In case you can't read my 14-year-old I think I'm really cool writing. So I had my buddy Derek burn that for me. From my recollection, okay, the first 3 things that Derek gave me for music, when took me under his wing, Metallica's Black Album, Slipknot's first album, and Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. But I'm pretty sure he gave me Cowboys from Hell and Vulgar Display of Power at the same time. I think White Zombie's Astro Creep was in there as well. So they might have given me 5 at once, but I keep thinking of 3, and those are the 3 that I recall. It might not have happened that way, but that's kind of what I remember. I also think he would have probably given me Slipknot's first album and Iowa at the same time, because they both would have been out at... Oh, maybe they weren't. I don't remember. But anyway, neither here nor there. I struggled with this a lot because I'm like, hey, well, one, just Pantera, whatever. There's a lot going on there. And with that one, there's a reason why I haven't bought that again or any Pantera album again, and that's because I don't want to financially in any way. It's not really going to support Phil, realistically, right? But it's just it's almost like buying an All That Remains album at this point. I'm like, I don't that's a different Phil, but nah, I don't want to affect the numbers. I don't want to do anything. I've already got the album. I've got the MP3s. I just don't want to buy it. Maybe one day I will, just because I like having a collection of stuff. I like to collect and have those physical items. Anyway, Vulgar Display of Power. It was really difficult to choose because I like The Great Southern Trendkill much better. It's my favorite Pantera album. It's just nuts. I don't even like every single song, but all of my favorite songs are on that album. It's fantastic. But it is on the more extreme end of Pantera. And we're not even going to talk about Pantera pre-Cowboys from Hell. Not even going to go there. That's a whole different Pantera, really. So, yeah, that's the one I chose because it is kind of in between Cowboys. Okay, so we're going with Vulgar Display of Power. It feels like it's kind of in the middle of the lighter Pantera and then the more extreme Pantera and the songs that I really enjoy, which are a lot of the Great Southern Trendkill. There's clean vocals on there and there's screaming, and I think that's really important for being hey, this is what metal is right here. You got riffs, you got obviously double kicks, super important. A band that's just prominent, and they revitalized metal at that time, really, when grunge was taking over. Pantera was kind of there, and yeah, but the music itself, really, that's what I want. I'm like, this is metal. Like, I would never want to show someone a band that was all cleans singing and then or all just screaming. To me, and how I interpret metal, because I'm not thinking of like, oh yeah, man, like, do you listen to heavy metal? Like, that's like a '70s term. Like, heavy metal and what they were talking about at the time is not metal, contemporary metal. It's not. To me, so much of that music isn't metal at all, even though that's what it was called at the time. Um, but yeah. Anyway, so to me, Pantera is still metal, right? Like, albums that came out, 2 decades ago are still metal to me right now, and that is still one of them. I think that it's accessible enough. There's just a lot going on there that is really solid and reflects still what contemporary metal, or where contemporary metal came from in a way, and some of the roots of things. Um, it's a certain style for sure, right? Whether we call it the first of the new wave of American heavy metal, um, or I mean, rooted in like some thrash and some other stuff, right? But I mean, there's so many genres of metal now that have exploded, right? But I still really think if you just want basic, like, hey, this is metal, check this out. That's what I would go with. A lot of people go with some Metallica albums, but really, to me, like, screaming is so important. I'm not saying that if it doesn't have screaming, it's not metal. That's not what I'm saying. But if I'm going to show someone what metal is, like, that's a part of it to me. So that's the album I'm going with. Next prompt: no one will believe that I own a copy of. Physical. Olivia Newton-John. Olivia Newton-John's Physical. Why do I have this album? Um, it is it was kind of a joke. It was one of the first vinyls that I got, way before I even had my own record player. But I was just like shopping at a pawn shop at King of Trade, actually, I believe it was, in Medicine Hat years ago. And we're just looking through stuff, and I was like, well, Olivia Newton-John, that's my bae. And I will truthfully tell you, I have not listened to that vinyl since I've had it, and it's been like at least 6 years. I know the song "Physical," like who doesn't know that song, but I don't know anything else on there. Um, I struggle with this question too because like no one will believe I have a copy of. Like, when I talk about music with people, at some point it usually comes up, depending on what we're talking about and how we're talking about it, that I don't really like to have guilty pleasures. Because with music, more than it seems anything else, it's like, oh yeah, it's my guilty pleasure or whatever. Like, every once in a while, stick on some Hanson, I'll play some bop. Like, I just I like what I like, and that's it. I don't want to have to really spend time justifying it. And I mean, and I can. I would rather spend more time justifying it than just be like, oh, it's a guilty pleasure. Like, no, it's not. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel like, oh man, everyone's gonna think this sucks and I'm a loser because I have this album. It's like, you know what? Sometimes you gotta listen to some Limp Bizkit. That's just the way it is. Sometimes you listen to some really shallow stuff because that's the way you feel, or it doesn't have anything. Like, maybe it is just about the beat, maybe whatever. Like, most of my music is not that way. Most of what I need has to have more depth in it. But there's a time and a place, and sometimes sometimes you just need to buy an Olivia Newton-John album that now I feel like I have to listen to it because this came up, and I was thinking, what's something that no one's going to guess? Like, why would you have that album? And it's the thing, because I don't even listen to it, so that's why it makes most sense. Like, yeah, I don't, like I said, I know the song "Physical," and it's a good song. It's a pop song. It's a good pop song, but I don't know any other tracks on there. But that's the one. The best album artwork is, again, this one's super hard. Like, I have so many physical copies of things, CDs mostly, and then now I've got a bunch of vinyl as well. These are not even a fraction at all of what I have. There's way more CDs, actually. The camera right now is standing on top of another CD rack, and there's CDs behind it. There's so much good album artwork, and when you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of albums, too, it's like, I don't even know where to start. Where do I start? Who do I think about? But boom, we're going with Bring Me the Horizon's Suicide Season, and there's a reason. So when I was at the U of S, there's a student-driven newspaper called The Sheaf. It was pretty good, actually, in comparison with some of the university newspapers that I've seen, including the U of L. Sorry to, but yeah, U of L. It's not a great student paper. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, I contributed to the paper periodically. Periodically would mean regularly, actually, I think, not randomly. Randomly, I would contribute to the paper. I wrote like an article about graffiti, culture in Saskatoon, and I written some other pieces, and then I did a couple album reviews. So the reason why I'm picking this album as the best album art, at the time, still, I don't know how often they do it now, but record labels and artists would send, like, to a lot of universities and colleges and stuff, packages of their albums before they came out sometimes, most of the time before they came out. And they would send it to like either the radio station or in this case it was the student newspaper. And they just have like brand new CDs just sitting there, but they're usually in like a demo form in a way. And actually, if you want to take a look at that, there's no insert. It came in just like a paper envelope, and it was just the disc there. And there's no insert, and this and the back, I actually like cut out and like made them fit in here, because it was just in like a hard paper envelope basically. Because even though it's not a demo, it was it was for promotional purposes. It was a promo copy. That's what I'm trying to say. So the thing was, I had never heard of Bring Me the Horizon at this point. So it was whenever this album was released. I mean, this is the release date right there. So, yeah. And the only reason it says the release date, again, is because this is a promo copy, right? So, 2008, like, I didn't know who Bring Me the Horizon was. At that point, I hadn't heard the older stuff, like Count Your Blessings, and so I didn't know who they were. But this just popped out to me because I went in the office, I guess I should say. I went into the office, I was like, I want to review an album, let's see what you got. And I was picking through stuff, and I was like, what is this? It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and again, from an artistic standpoint, because we're talking about the album artwork, I mean, we've got a pretty young lady. There's a lot of contrast. So I mean, there's the beauty of the person. There's the way that the photo is shot and then enhanced. You've got this strong white. She's wearing a black dress. She's kind of pale. She's holding. It's black, white, and red. That's it for color, really. Other than her eyes, which are pretty muted anyway. But it's. I mean, I guess her skin tone as well. But whatever. Anyway, and her hair. But black, white, and red is what you see. Black, white, and red, and then the back as well. Which I didn't. This isn't what attracted me to it. But when I flipped it to the back, I was like, all right, not hardcore unless you live hardcore, I guess. But yeah, it was just like the model they used is attractive, pretty in the face, holding her intestines. The expression that she has is fairly calm and stuff too. But it was intriguing. It was like, what's happening? Why would you use this? And usually a title would play a big role as well for me. Suicide Season, it certainly is like, oh, that's striking. What is this about? But it really was more about the image, and just like there's things clashing here. There's violence, there's aggressiveness, and there's beauty. And I didn't like sit there and just like think about that. It just happened like quick, like that, which is what album artwork is supposed to do to me. It's supposed to communicate something without you dissecting it in that moment. It's just like, wow, that's strong, and that is strong. And I think that it does represent the album pretty accurately. There's really only one like soft song, I guess we'll call it, in the form of like kind of a ballad, but it's beautiful. And there's cleans on it, not from Ollie, he wasn't singing at the time. But oh my goodness, I forgot his name, and I'm not going to look it up, from Architects. Was singing cleans on it, and it was just like, it's a beautiful song, it's amazingly sad, but there's a lot of like more aggressive parts on there too. more aggressive songs and stuff. And it's just, anyway, that to me was like a really striking thing that it stopped me and was like, whoa, what is this? I want to check this out. And then I reviewed it. But that's, to me, out of everything I can think of for album artwork, like I could have gone to like Antichrist Superstar or like some other stuff where there's amazing artwork that really accurately represents the album and the artist, very well done. But this was something that just, again, it was just I could have made a list of like 100 and been like, these are all like the best. But that really just stopped me in my tracks. I was like, what is this? I want to know what this is. This looks amazing. And at the time, it was amazing. I listened to that over and over and over again. I love that album. So anyway, that's that one. This kills me to say. The album that should not be is Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of my top 4 favorite bands. One Hot Minute. One Hot Minute. For any of you who know the band or whatever, so John Frusciante, the most beautiful guitarist in the world, this was his first departure, I believe, from the band, and it definitely showed. It was just not, like, you can't replace him. Like, even now with Josh in there, the past 2 albums, it's obviously not the same. It's much better than this album. This album is just such hot trash. Hot trash. Not good. Just not good. I really like Dave Navarro. Not necessarily as a guitarist. As a pretty looking man. But yeah, anyway, like I just said, not as a guitarist, and that's it. Just I don't want to say it was his presence, but like more of John Frusciante's absence. But that's not necessarily true either, because like now that Josh has been in there for 2 albums, those records don't sound this bad. Like there's a lot of good songs on the last 2 albums, but One Hot Minute, just there's nothing on there. Aeroplane is barely a song, and it's the only thing I would listen to off that whole album. That's the album that should not be. I don't know what happened. I can't say, oh, it's Dave's fault. Like, I don't know what it was. It just, there's a lot of stuff that went on. Possibly, it was no thanks. The album I break the speed limit to. This one's gonna be quick. Wilson, Right to Rise. There's some bangers on there. Really good tracks that are just stumping and good songwriting for, again, that purpose. Again, Wilson, if you know them, like this isn't stuff that's gonna really make me think that much. I'm not gonna drop it down to a level of like Limp Bizkit, but it's it's just good stomping hard rock, light metal. I don't know what to call it genre wise. It's definitely more metal than hard rock, I guess, for sure. I just don't know where to put it. But it's just good stuff. Just like some real riffage and just like driving songs that some of them, I definitely want to hit the gas pedal for sure when I listen to those tracks. Super good. Check it out. We come to the last one. Because in Metal Hammer and or Revolver would have either asking these questions to musicians, the last question makes more sense for them, but it does apply to me a bit, and it was the album that I want to be remembered for. So, I've only really recorded 2 albums. One was an EP and one was a full length, and it is this one here, which is Abandoning Grace, with my last band I was in, Destrier. So, unfortunately, I have to say the recording quality of the majority of these songs is trash. There's 2 tracks on here, Models of Failure and Bloodletting the Blackness, that are pretty good quality. They were recorded by someone else. We did like this little 2-song thing. We had an opportunity to do it. We just did it, and they're good quality. Then when it came time to record this full-length album, which we really were just like, yeah, let's do it, especially because we knew at the time that Jordan, our founding members and lead guitarist, if you want to call him that, he was leaving the band and stuff, and we're like, yeah, we need to have this thing. He wanted it, I wanted it, this collection of songs. The EP that we had was recorded generously by a friend in their basement. Not the best quality stuff. It gave us experience. It gave him experience. It was a good exchange. But also we improved on our everything: lyric writing, songwriting, just everything that went into the album was better because it was a couple of years after we did that EP, and and that's the thing, I would like to be remembered for it. However, it's so difficult to listen to because the quality is just so bad, except for those two songs. But there's a lot of strong songs structurally, not sonically, because of the quality at which they were recorded and mastered, barely. So, yeah, there's things obviously being like a newer band that we could have done better in the recording process too, but if you listen to those two songs, they're drastically different from the rest of the album. Abandoning Grace, though, is the album, and there's a lot of stuff that I put in here that I still feel is just like strong, like lyrically, not necessarily vocal performance wise for me, but lyrically, and again the song structures, I still believe in a lot of them. Like they're still super tight, and like yeah, there's just it's a collection of tracks that I felt like. I mean, when you're this young of a band, you're not really like selecting like we made 70 songs, let's bring it down to 10. These were the songs we had at the time, pretty much for the most part. So we obviously felt they were strong, and I still believe a lot of them are. So that's the album I'd like to be remembered for, but in a way, I'd like to be remembered for an album I haven't made yet, I guess is another answer, because I would like at some point, I don't know how or what opportunity will come my way or what opportunity I will make, but I'd like to have something with amazing quality, sonically, not just structurally in the songs and then the lyrics and then the performance, but that's out of the only two things I've made really that were like a full collection of songs. This is the one that I prefer. So, Destrier, Abandoning Grace. That's the one. We'll leave off on that. Next week or not next? Yeah, maybe next week. I want to put out the real top 10 albums that changed my life, because there I get to play with like. There's no questions to prompt it. It's like, what 10 albums actually changed my life? I think it'll be a much more interesting video. This one was a little more fun with the questions and the prompts that they have there. But with that, we will see you on another time.